It's important for any group to have a strong unity between all band members if they're going to be able to not only coexist with one another, but also be able to create music with each other. The exception to that rule would be Fleetwood Mac, one of the most iconic groups of the last 50 years, where each member was going through very ugly and public breakups during the mid-70s, and what resulted was Rumours, one of the biggest selling albums of all time and the group's most successful album. Why do I bring this up? Well, it's sort of a similar story to the New Zealand-based synthpop group The Naked and Famous. During the process of creating this, their third studio album entitled Simple Forms, the group was on the brink of breaking up after the end of the 8-year relationship between co-founders and vocalists Alyssa Zayalith and Tom Powers. But instead of calling it quits, the group soldiered on, and the two singers focused this scenario into their album. And honestly, it's kind of a good thing that they did, because this is a pretty good album. Close to great if truth be told. When delving into the lyrics, the concept reads as the disintegration of a relationship that seems to have been on the brink for some time, leading to the ultimate and perhaps inevitable result of the two parties in this album calling things off. But despite things ending on a sad note, there's this glimmer of love that the parties still have for one another, and although they both recognise that this isn't going to lead to the two getting back together, they can end things rather amicably and admirably, instead of the vitriol and hatred that most relationships end in. What results is a lyrically mature album that tells a cohesive enough story that despite very little in the way of happiness, you're actually happy that the two characters finish things off on respectable ground. The album starts off with Higher, where the elation over this relationship has finally dissipated and both parties no longer feel the same way for each other as they once did, thus spelling the beginning of the end for the couple, despite the following track, The Water Beneath You, where the female lead suggests sticking it out to see if things get better and to see if the spark can be recaptured, only for things to take an immediate swing in the opposite direction on My Energy, where the male lead comes to the conclusion that's been staring him straight in the face all this time, staying together is pointless, delivering the killer blow with the line, "It's all just been one big joke." From here on out, things eventually take a downward turn, where the two finally call things off and part ways with the obligatory "I wish you well along the way" monologues, before capping off everything with the two thanking one another for the times they've both spent with each other, and both go their separate ways, knowing that one day they'll both be loved again, and despite the initial pain our female is experiencing and the expected bitterness that comes with the breakup, she knows it will eventually subside and that she'll be able to fully move on with her life. This is an aspect of the album that I really like. Instead of the album being entirely focused on one person's perspective throughout, both parties in this scenario spill their thoughts and feelings, which gives this album a great deal of contrast. I would have liked for the performing duties to have been split equally, as Alyssa does get more in terms of appearances on the track list, but when you get a track like Backslide where Tom takes the floor, it doesn't do much to support this line of thought, I have to say. Instrumentally, this album is a lot more stripped back in comparison with previous projects. The sounds are a lot less bombastic and a lot more restrained, perhaps in order to reflect the tone of the album. The only real moment that provides some fist-pumping action can be found on Higher, with the dancehall synths and dynamic drums, but adding a small touch of subtleness with a brief piano inclusion in the break. The album often gives the listener some organic instrumentation that complements the synths that take up the majority of the album, whether they're in the form of distorted electric guitars, the few energetic drum deliveries, or from the piano, which makes the track Rotten just an absolutely gorgeous closer. On the whole, I really like what's going on here. I feel that this is a well-told, well-delivered concept album that tells a fluid story. There's definitely a lot here to like, although I will admit that the album does take a bit of a nosedive in the middle after starting off strongly. I would have liked the instrumentation to not have been as reduced as it was, as some moments do struggle to keep my attention, and when that's not the case, some of the synthetic moments are pretty unbearable to get through. A couple of tracks lyrically don't pack as much of an emotional impact, or I feel like it's the same repeated topic that was covered better in a previous track, and some vocal deliveries could have been made so much better if they hadn't been tampered with by adding effects or auto-tune to them. But I will say this, if this is the last album that comes from the group, then it's a solid way to go out.